And crime and violence must stop.
Everybody, thanks for tuning back again. I don't know, it's a morning inside here again. Good day to the people them. But look, we have something what we really want to touch on, with the Maverick. Yeah, the Maverick oral TRACY, been saying a lot of stuff, on his radio program, through the airwaves. And I just feel like it not sound good. It just feel like it seems like it give the people the wrong takes on what the coach is trying to do. Look, he have said everything that is factual, but when you go back into it and look into it and put it to context, then you realize I think he can give his takes a lot better and put it into context so the people can really understand what is really going on. But you see, when it come on to club football, when it come on to international football, it's totally two different stuff. And Oral TRACY give his takes on chop and change, selection issue, with Steve McCLAREN and his squad, and actually give his takes on Ethan Pinnock. Yes, Ethan Pinnock. Ethan Pinnock missing because of personal issues, personal reason. And actually he gave his takes as well, about the Unity Cup, and he's not so overly impressed of what the reggaeboyz did in that tournament. You understand? So, I'm going to give my takes and I'm going to drop a few, not video clip but audio clip in the video so you guys can listen what he said. I'm going to give my opinion, and also you guys can give your opinion as well in the comment section. And remember, don't forget to like, share, comment and subscribe to the video. It's really important to push the video, just to support the video. That's all I'm saying. Like, share, comment and subscribe. Yeah, I will be back after this. So Oral give his takes, and is either the coach is doing the right thing or is doing the wrong thing. And to him at this moment, everything should be settled, everything should be organized, and shouldn't be seeing any new players according to him. Like, this is how he's speaking. And one new player came in, Tyrese Campbell, and he give his takes as well of the selection process of it's like an influx of players is coming in. The way how he bring out the message on his airwave, on his radio program about the selection and chop and change, you will feel like as if it's 10-15 players that's coming through the door and 15 players going out of the national team. And I don't like it. I just think that it's something kind of a little bit of negative. But again, what he said about the coach have been made changes, the coach is still looking for players, it's something factual, but I'm going to bring it to context because this is international football, and this is what the Maverick, this is a little conversation that the Maverick was having on his radio program with another caller about how the team should be settled, and the manager is still picking players, and this is what they said.
That is a good way to put it. I guess that spelling, and I guess that spelling are the worst thing for me.
Yeah, man, that make no sense, brother. When the time come and even 15, man them in the side, I want them confusion again.
Yeah, man. That's why I'm worried, brother. Remember, you be solve that problem from top of coach team, When Algrims come here, he may try to settle the team some more. He may not try to get a settled team. But since Algrims are gone and this man come now, chop again.
So my takes on this is as well, give your takes as well in the comment section. I love to hear what you guys think as well, but this is my takes, and I'm saying this, if it was coach Hemir Algrimson, it would have been probably over 2 years since he's been in the job. Then he will talk about, okay, we wouldn't want to see a lot of chop and changes, players is coming in and out. Players will always be coming in and out for national setup, and players, managers will always look at players, but want to use the reggaeboyz. Want to put this one into context. The reggaeboyz, they have this luxury of go overseas in the diaspora in the UK of getting heritage players. So when you still have players in the UK that is still at a higher level than a lot of our players, currently playing for the national team, any coaches that walk through the door of the Jamaican Football Federation, they will always look to get a few players to see if they can blast the squad, add quality to the squad. But again, you talk about chop and changes and all of that. And I'm going to give my takes and what he said is factual, so if you go back to the September window when Steve McCLAREN picked his first squad, what he said, he's going to pick literally almost every player from the previous squad that Amir Alfgrimson named in the Copa America to just give everybody a clean slate, and from then he can start to pick his own team going forward for the October window. And if you look at it in September, he picked 3 local players: Adrian Reed, Richard King, and also Shaquan Davis. And I think Shaquan Davis will replace Kanye Boys Clark, who was in that Copa America in the summer of 2024. And also changes, to the starting 11, compare to the team that he picked. He made 2 changes, to the starting level. 2 changes compared to the last game that he managed in September to the first game in October. And when you look at the first game to the second game, the 2 games in October, he made 4 changes to both starting lineup. And actually, when he just now picking his own team, in the October window, he called up and made 6 changes to the squad, and even John Russell got left out of that squad as well. You understand? So, and when you look at it, it's only 2 local players was in that squad: Shaquan Davis and actually Richard King. And when you look at the November window, he made 3 changes to the squad where we had 3 local players, 3 local players in the November pool. And I think that was Joshua Anglin, for the US game, and actually Richard King and Shaquan Davis. And if you look at it, the last game that he managed in October to the first game of the first leg versus the US men's national team in November, he made 5 changes to the starting level. And go back to the game, that the last leg that they played in Missouri, to the first leg, he made 4 changes to the starting level. But again, what he said, it's factual, it's right there, but it's not a influx of changes that he's made. The core of the players that are still on board, the 2 left back, Greg Lay, Amari Bell, if one of them, is missing because of suspension, injury, players are not on form. These are the stuff that you have to put into context of players on international duty will always drop out because of form. You have players in the team, who currently is picking up form. You have players that out of the team that will get select into the national team because they are out of selection. But while out of selection, they picked up a form, and the coach decided they're going to bring back the player in the national pool. So there's a lot of reason why you will have between 3 and 6 changes in each window for a national team. And in the Steve McCLAREN era, he have only made 6 changes. That's the most he have made to a squad. And if you compare the US game to the March window, he made 5 changes to the squad that he picked in March, that he played against St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And if you look at the starting 11 of the last game that they played in Missouri compared to the first leg that they played in St. Vincent, only 4 changes to the starting 11 and just 2 more changes to between the first leg and the second leg in St. Vincent and Sabina. So there's not a lot of changes he made. As I said, the core of players, they are still there, so I would love to hear you guys comment on your opinion on this as well, because look, personally, Steve McCLAREN just got the job probably like 7-8 months ago. So you will still be thinking that the coach will still be looking to add quality pieces, because when he walked through the door, it was actually Coach Amir Alfgrimson's team. Now this team is kind of shaping up of looking more of a Steve McCLAREN team. So now we see things kind of getting into shape, and then it's more looking at Steve McCLAREN setup. But the core of players like the Bailey, the Demari Gray, the Nanalo, the Richard King, the Amari Bell, the Greg Lay, the Ethan Pinnock, the Mason Oldgate just walked in. And talking about Mason Oldgate and the core of players that was there from last year, September, until now. I think he have only made like a few changes in terms of how many debutants came in, from England, that was born in England, heritage players. I cannot think of Isaac Hayden, Mason Holgate, and now this one, I think it's Tyrese Campbell. So, not much players he got, from overseas. It's probably just 3 players made a debut since Steve McCLAREN started. So I don't think that sentiment that he shared is really true. You understand? I think there's a lot of context can put into it, because if you look at Jesse March, when Jesse March just got appointed for the Canadian job, the Canadian football team, he made so many changes to his squad over the months and months and months playing international friendly. Even after the Copa America, they have made a couple changes because players got injured, players are out of touch, players suspended, and players just they are just not available for that international window. So goes back to what he said about the Unity Cup. This is what he said about the Unity Cup, of he's not so overly impressed of what happened in the Unity Cup.
I hear the difference with me and a lot of the man. I'm bridging that about how a while ago I said, we play good in the Unity Cup. I don't think we were impressive in the Unity Cup, boss. I don't think we were. If you look at the final points of the game, if we were playing against better opponents, we would have cut we apart and score up a goal per way, brother. How much goal? A 4 goal we conceded in the 2 games against Trinidad and Nigeria.
Look, it wasn't a performance where you will say, it will take you up off your seat. But what we have experienced in the past, you will say it's a notch better than what we experienced, especially in the St. Vincent game. In the St. Vincent game, it was such a terrible performance, especially in that first leg in St. Vincent. You understand, the game that they played at Sabina Park, not so much bad. You could understand and see something that what they did, in the Unity Cup, they were trying to do. But again, I guess he got little bit more time and better surface. I know the football look a little bit more refreshing, where you can digest the football a little bit more and said, okay, I can accept this by just a start. This is far from over. You understand? But what more important for a manager, for a coach, for a national setup, is all about, you need to get a very good program, you need to get a good philosophy, and you need to get chemistries between players. Look, the players that played in the Unity Cup, look at how they play together. It's a different brand of football. Yes, it's way off. It can get way better. You can probably unlock a lot more out of those players. But those players, it's the first time they actually playing together. Romain Borrell. And Romain Borrell is another player that, on the international duty, he got his debut, and that's an unofficial games. And if he goes back to what I said with the Isaac Hayden, the Mason Holgate, and the Tyrese Campbell, those players are only one I can remember of he picked, for competitive games. Not talking about the 2 games that he played versus Trinidad and Tobago and the Unity Cup unofficial friendly game. But if you go back to it, it's a little bit refreshing. King and Mason Holgate, it's actually the first time they're playing together. The Isaac Hayden, the John Russell, the Casey Palmer, it's the first time they're playing together as a midfield 3. The front 3 and the 2 wingers, especially Kahim and Cephas, it was the first time those players playing together. But guess what? They managed to find that unity amongst them, where they play the football a lot more easier and they create a little bit more chance. You understand? So it's nothing if Ronaldo Cephas created all the opportunities. That's why he's on the pitch. This is why you have 11 men on the pitch. If 10 players cannot come up with the goods, at least one of them should come up with the goods. That's the nature of football. That's the nature of international football as well. So I'm going to, go ahead again and give, my takes. But again, we concede some goals that we shouldn't concede against Trinidad and Tobago. No, look, the defense need a lot more help, need a lot more to it, but it's a work in progress. It's better than previous, and that's all we're asking for. Each time you step on that pitch, show commitment, show passion, show urgency of want to play the football, show that intensity, and we got that from the team in the Unity Cup. I don't know what the Maverick was watching, but we actually got that in the Unity Cup. And moving forward again, the Ethan Pinnock, he said this about Ethan Pinnock.
Serious World Cup qualifiers. We have a problem with a player opt out of World Cup qualifiers for personal reason, my boss. And the rest of man, we are cheerleading him. Can't see a difference between a man opt out of a friendly or a Gold Cup or even a Copa America or a Nations League fixture different from a World Cup qualifying window. My eyes different from Uno. Can me think it different when a man pull out of a World Cup qualifying window than when he miss a friendly game, my boss.
You know, I mean, look, Ethan Pinnock, you know, he gave his reason, you know, he gave the coach a reason, and the coach came out and he actually gave us a reason of, look, Ethan Pinnock, it's a personal issue, it's a personal matter, yeah, he's dealing with some internal stuff with it within his own space, and he will be unavailable. Don't make it seem like Ethan Pinnock is not commit to the team. Ethan Pinnock was here, yeah, against Cuba. Yeah, he was here against Cuba, and if you look at it, the games that we played in the quest to qualify for the Gold Cup against St. Vincent, he was there as well. You know, so when you look at that, that shows you that a player is coming. And even in the March window when he played against St. Vincent, he was coming off an injury, and he managed to be there same way. So I don't think it's down to commitment. It's more than that. It's more than that. I just think that what he said is dealing with some personal issues, and just let's accept that. Let's respect the man's privacy space. Yes, you know, he missing the Copa America because of, you know, his wife was, our girlfriend was giving birth, you know, for their child, and you have to respect that again. That's, you know, that's a baby. Yeah, they're bringing, you know, on the earth, and you just have to just know that, look, he want to miss the Copa America because of the birth of his child. That's acceptable. That's acceptable for every individual that in around sports. And again, the player said he is going to be unavailable because he have personal matters need to get taken care of. Cannot fault the man. Yes, it's a World Cup qualifier. Yes, it is our bread and butter. But it's just British Virgin Island. It's Guatemala. Ethan Pinnock is our best player. You want your best players to be representing in the national setup, especially for World Cup qualifier. But if the player said his personal reason, let's respect the player space and give him space and give him time so he can take care of internal matters, you know, within his space and his family. You know, so I don't see the sense of, you know, making that big outburst of it seems like it is something wrong. You know, it's just a personal reason why Ethan Pinnock is missing. He have always been here. You know, even when we playing against some team that rank all the way up over nearly 200, Ethan Pinnock is still here representing. So I mean, look, I'm not questioning the man's personal space. He said something, and I'm going to respect his space and leave it like that. Yeah. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Yeah. Moving forward, you know, thanks for watching. This is Nicardo Media House, and I'm out. Salute.